Dear professors and colleagues, my name is Reba and I'm a fourth-year student of Integrated Single Major Study of Ethnomusicology at Music Academy Zagreb. The preliminary research of the construction of national folk music in Osik I had a chance to present in the musicological workshop Czech and European Music Between Political Agitation and Autonomy from 1938 to 1968, which was held in Prague in September this year. In my research, I will focus on the construction of national folk music within the Radio Osik program from the 1940s to 1960s. I will observe the activities of ensembles of the tambura, a traditional plucked instrument, which in the context of Radio Osik served as direct mediators of traditional music practices with educational and pedagogical agenda. Before establishing the relationship between the restructuring of the aesthetics of folk music with the ideology of the ruling regimes, it is necessary to clarify the socio-political situation active on the territory of Croatia from the 1940s to the 1960s. I will present the concepts which led to the change of the discourse of folk music to establish the idea of national unity in the former Yugoslavia and then at the local level in Osijek. During the 1930s, a so-called traditionalist model of presenting folk music was established, which systematically rejected musical literacy and the idea of progress, emphasizing existing and ancient values. It rejected village culture, which was created for the village by experts, and tried to make the peasantry a subject of social and political life and cultural creation. This model embodied the construction of domestic as correct versus foreign as undesirable, which will persist until the second half of the 20th century. During the Second World War, when the independent state of Croatia operated as a puppet state of Nazi Germany and was led by the Ustasha movement, the basic social structure remains the peasantry, and the principles of modernization were revived through the unification of folk and art music. The goal was to unify regional musical styles and bring such unified Croatian music closer to the aesthetic criteria of Western art music and especially that of the Allies. On the other hand, the opposing People's Liberation Movement used traditional templates from different parts of Yugoslavia for the partisan song. Freedom and spontaneity were retained, and music in which elements of schlagers, chansons, marching songs, and traditional songs were introduced was created on new texts that promoted socialist and communist ideas of unity. The multiple heterogeneities of the partisan movement were not denied from the beginning, but at the end of the World War II, it gradually transformed into a monolithic idea of oneness. The model of socialist realism after the war led to the implementation of the political paradigms of brotherhood and unity and society's material and spiritual progress. Concepts from the second half of the 1930s were partially renewed with the promotion of educational, contemporary, and advanced repertoire. Here you can see how the territory of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes in 1990 reshaped Yugoslavia with its 7 country members. The presented tendencies can also be recognized in the tambura tradition, which I observed in the local context in the town of Osijek. The city of Osijek is located in the eastern part of Croatia in the province of Slavonia on the banks of the Drava River, and in First and Second Yugoslavia it represented the origin of tambura music. Although the tambura, a chordophone instrument from the lute family, is spread in various regions of Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia, its tradition experienced affirmation in concert orchestral music after an important political figure, Pajo Kolarić, founded the first tambura society in Osijek in 1847. Tambura and tambura ensembles from that time started to be interpreted as national symbols. At the same time, tamburica music evoked the issues of foreign, domestic, and original, acting as the scene of public and hidden political and radio management conflicts as well as musical referees and audience preferences. The reason for this phenomena is the performance of the Western European artistic repertoire in addition to the traditional one, which creates bridges to foreign countries. The idea of bringing folk music closer to art within the independent state of Croatia ideology framework encouraged collective music making. Instead of diverse, locally specific methods of performance, the cultivated performance of the same tambura choirs was encouraged. In this period, tambura ensembles were often a surrogate for real or musically valuable orchestras that could not be assembled due to wartime circumstances. Despite numerous written materials that described the interruption of all cultural activities during the war, the magazine Croatian Tamburica reveals how the activities of tambura orchestras remained almost uninterrupted until the fall of the Ustaša regime. At the end of the war, numerous workers' cultural and artistic societies were founded. Within such societies, tambura orchestras are formed with the names of labor organizations and prominent anti-fascist fighters. The Piocolari Slavonic Tambura Society, founded in 1954, is the most significant promoter of concert orchestral music and one of the leading Croatian tambura societies. At the instigation of STS Piocolaric, the Festival of Tambura Music of Yugoslavia was founded in Osik in 1961, which aims to popularize concert orchestral tambura music and encourage new creativity. The repertoire conception in this period is based on concert orchestral music, leaving space in the program for rural and urban traditional music in artistic processing. The dominance of mass societies, with sections of various cultural activities, conditions the so-called engaged programs, without which not a single public manifestation goes by. Post-war concerts represent instrumental ensembles to a greater extent, with the absence of local specificities, so the tambura ensembles have become standard accompanying instrumental ensembles and representatives of semi-professionalism due to their adaptation to the indirect demands of new engagement and stylization. The new socialist Yugoslavia sought from the culture of the peasantry a rapid and versatile cultural elevation, providing the shaping of conceptions of folk music. Instead of potentially expanding the circle of permissible traditions, a rigid canon of uniform bearers and approachers prevailed. Here, through the links, you can hear two examples of the most performed tamburica music practice. The first one is a traditional dance called poskakanac, and here tamburica ensemble of Radio Osik bears its traditional role. In another example, you can hear a representative of the modern arrangement from the 70s of the song Kad bi ove ruže male, performed by popular singer Vera Svoboda, which served to popularize tamburica music in the wider community. Radio Osik was founded in 1943. The archives of Radio Osik will serve as one of the main sources of research, considering that the insight into reports on broadcast, the list of broadcast works, and listener preferences are valuable indicators of the mediation of symbols of key political ideas which were propagated through the music program. According to Bernstein, a broader understanding of the phenomenon of pedagogical practice should be seen in the context of social relations based on the imbalance of power between two parties through which social knowledge is reproduced and produced, social control is exercised, and social order is established. Therefore, mass media such as radio should not be seen as a mere mediator between the political and cultural elite and the wider strata, but as a meeting place and struggle between unrelated discourses, practices, interests, and actors. Within the Radio Osik program, since the spring of 1944, a large part has been dedicated to folk music performed by a tamburica sextet or orchestra with shows dedicated to the peasantry. Magazine Tamburaška glazba or Tamburica music from the 1950s bears witness to the most important details from the activities of the Osijek Radio Orchestra, which performs in radio broadcasts with educational content. The programming focused on more demanding concert compositions and larger musical forms. Josip Andrić, as the long-term president of the Tambura Association, divides two directions of tambura music. Vojvodina tambura music, which was characterized by the absence of original tambura concert literature, and Slavonian tambura music, which transfers the focus of tambura music from vulgar professionalism to amateur music. These styles came together precisely in the context of radio music in the area of Slavonia, conveying the idea of brotherhood and unity through regular collaboration since the end of the 1950s. After the war, the program sought to encourage national unification and cultural reapproachment on Yugoslav soil with an awareness of the uniqueness and authenticity of Yugoslav culture in the international framework. Consequently, folk music played a strong role in the radio program, which favored the material and political aspirations of the management, the aesthetic and the ideological orientation of the musical editors, and the musical preferences of the listeners. At the same time, the disagreement between the professional staff and the management led to often conflicting views on the repertoire and the performance of folk music. The profession emphasized how they are created in a way and in a form that does not exist in the tradition. After the Second World War, Radio Osik became owned by radio station Zagreb, and the program was filled with an increasing number of processed and newly composed folk songs and performance with frequent guest appearances by ensembles from other radio stations and of Yugoslavia. Along with the liberalization of performance practices, traditional music specific to cultures outside of Yugoslavia was also promoted. During the processing of the available material and literature so far, I focused on gaining an impression of the situation at the level of the national contexts, which I managed to confirm fragmentarily by studying radio documents and preserved written materials which were related to the development of tambura music in Osijek. Insight into the continuous practice of broadcasting and performance of folk music was made difficult by the fact that during archival data processing I only had certain years of individual broadcasts at my disposal, each of which did not have the same value for the topic, nor was the broadcast of each one monitored throughout the year, which will understandably make the analysis results less credible and relevant. The next step would be the review of the broadcast gramophone records that are preserved in the archive and finding sources that will allow insight into expert criticism and the attitudes of listeners. I believe that this path will lead to answers to the questions of conflicting interests in mass media such as radio as an ideological sphere of social action and an illusory space of the unquestioning process of transmitting ideas and beliefs from top to bottom. I also tried to discover how the idea of unity was tried to be realized in Osijek and what role music played in that. Where and in what way does nationalism manifest itself in the music characteristics of a historical moment, and is it a prerequisite for artistic national music to be characterized by folk elements, i.e., is tambura music a national symbol even when it renounces the function of a representative of traditional music? Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions regarding this topic, please be free to contact me through my email, and here you can check through my literature.